morning. Everybody, it's good to be here this morning, and if you are not happy to be here, well, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to get happy, because I'm happy, and if I'm happy, you've got to be happy, and I really am excited about being here. I did this a little last week. Everybody's back this week. I want to do it again. If you were involved in our youth camps the last couple of weeks, if you would just stand just a moment. There's a lot of us here, some in the back, some over on the sides. Y'all aren't standing. If you were involved in our youth camps the last couple of weeks, don't make me feel like it. Thank you. Guys, thank y'all for being a part of that. Y'all know, you can be seated now. That's one of the greatest things that we have going on with us right now. I am so excited about our kids and the youth and the work that's going on. You just don't know how blessed I believe we are because we have so many of our young people involved. I want you to do me a favor. If you've been involved in our camps, I want you to be an infection. I really do. I want you to be an infection. I want you to infect us all with the joy that you received while you were at camp. I think that's one of the most special things that we can do is share with people the joy and the happiness that we've found in being a part of something as spiritually uplifting as our Christian camp. So I don't know about you, but that's one of the most uplifting things that I ever had happen to me. And it's not just because I met my wife at church camp the very first time I went. For those of you who are visiting, that's a true story. I met my wife and she hated my guts. And I always tell my kids whenever I'm at camp, I say, guys, be careful the person that you're sitting next to or in this area, in this surrounding, in this camp. You may marry someone out of here, and I always hear, ugh. That's what my wife said. And I chased her till she finally caught me, and so church camp is a very special place for me. You know, I'm excited about everything that's going on in this congregation. We've got so much good work going on. Tonight at 5 p.m., we've got our fifth Sunday singing is going to be here. Everybody's bringing sandwiches. If you forgot yours, please bring them at 5 o'clock. We need them to be here. We're expecting a great group this evening. We're going to have singing from 5 to about 6 o'clock, maybe a little bit after, and then we're going to have a sandwich supper in the fellowship area after that's over. I'm excited about that. It's going to be great. As my cousin over in Louisiana said, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm excited about that. We're glad that you're here this morning, especially if you're visiting with us. We're a congregation, as Chris said, a family here. We're not just a congregation of God's church. We're a family, and we take that very seriously. We wouldn't mind adding to that family if you're interested in being here. Next Sunday is our first Sunday, and we have Tell Me About West Freeway on that Sunday after lunch. We'll have a lunch that is available in the fellowship area. So our shepherd group sponsor that, and we usually have lunch here for our visitors every week. This just happens to be a holiday weekend with the 4th coming up, and so we try not to plan on those. But next week we'll have our first Sunday and have Tell Me About West Freeway and a special lunch as well as that. I've got a question for you this morning. When I became a Christian, and as my dad became a Christian, there was a lot of things that I didn't know about God. And there was a song, Do You Know My Jesus? And it was sung on the very first Sunday that I was ever at church, at Pine Tree Church of Christ in Longview, Texas. It's not necessarily my favorite song, but one of the most memorable. You know, those that stick in your head. I love the song, and we're going to sing it as an invitation song, I believe. Is that right, Ron? We're going to sing it as an invitation song, and I want you to think about the words as we sing them in a little bit. But first, I want to talk to you about this, because in John 1, verses 2 through 6, or chapter 2, verses 3 through 6, we know that we have come to know him if we obey his commands. The man who says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But if anyone obeys his word, God's love is truly made complete in him. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus did. Now, I don't know about you, but what does Jesus mean to you? What does Jesus mean to you? I want us to look at a few questions this morning that I think will help us to understand where I'm coming from as far as this goes. Because first is where would Jesus fit in your priority list? Where does he fit in your priority list? I mean, do you understand how he needs to make a difference in your life? Do you understand that? I mean, a lot of people don't. I mean, Jesus is just a figure. It's just a person. He's somebody that was there, and he may have some place in my life, but not right now, or I'm too busy for that, or I'm just here because I feel bad if I'm not here. I get a phone call. I want us to understand what it means to have a relationship with this Jesus. I think it's more than just going to church. But is it in your life? Is it more than just being here? Is it more than just singing? Is it more than just partaking of the Lord's Supper? Is it more than giving? Is it more than being a part of the family? I think so. I think all those things are very, very important for us to understand, but sometimes I think we misunderstand the importance of Jesus in our lives. There's a question that people have posed to me in the past, people who really say they want to get to know Jesus, and they want to know, is there any difference in knowing him and knowing him? Now that sounds kind of redundant, doesn't it? But it's true. We know him, but do we really know him? I know a lot of you, but I know my wife extremely well. Better yet, she knows me. And there's a difference in that. It's not just being acquaintance. It's the idea of, can we really get to know Jesus? And the answer is, yes, we can. We can get to know him very well. I've always said that there are a lot of people who know Jesus, but they don't really know him. And it's based on that question that I've been asked over and over and over in my ministry. Throughout the ages, I think people have claimed various ways to prove and reassure themselves that they know Jesus. In the days of John, a group called the Gnostics claimed that they knew Jesus because of a special revelation of knowledge they claimed to possess. You met some of those people too, haven't you? People who claim to have a knowledge of Jesus because they've been specially blessed. Today we have the same thinking going on with some. There are a few other ways that people claim to know Jesus, but it always comes back to that, well, I was given a revelation or something happened in my life that turned me around. Hey, those play a part in the Bible, and I understand that. But that's not the idea that I'm trying to portray this morning. Is there a difference between knowing him and knowing him? And I believe there is. How do I really know if I know Jesus? Really know him? How do I know that? How do I know that that's what he's talking about? How do I know Jesus? And today I want to ask you this. I want to pose the question of Jesus, do you know me? If he asks you this morning, do you know me? Could you really say yes? Today I want us to look at the way and what really it means to know him and how we can really know him, or just have him as an acquaintance. Oh, we know him by sight, we know him by recognition, but do we really know him inside? Some people can say that we know him, but there's a great result in the reality of knowing him. We know. Notice the information that's given here. We know that we have come to know him if we keep his commandments. We know if. Whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in the person. But if anyone obeys his word, love for God is truly made complete in them. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must live as Jesus did. Knowing him is more than an intellectual pursuit. It's about being obedient. And somebody says, well, I understand that, but what does it mean? What does it mean to know Jesus? For many, it comes down to knowing all the facts of Jesus. I mean, they can tell you facts and figures. They can quote scriptures. They can tell you how many times Jesus used the word love, how many times he talked about giving, how many times he talked about marriage, how many times he talked about divorce. They've got all the facts right, but they do not know Jesus. And you say, well, if they've got that kind of knowledge, how can they not know Jesus? Well, I want you to know something. I know a lot of people who have a lot of information. I love history, and I'm always drawn to Chris because of it. And I try not to do that too much. But every time I think about something historical, I want to call him and say, hey, have you thought about this? And I know he gets that all the time, so I just kind of leave him alone. But you know, whenever I think about that, and I think about the historical significance of Hitler, there's a lot of knowledge about Hitler. But how many of you in here know Hitler? And if anybody raises their hand, y'all run, okay? I mean, really think about it. We all have an understanding historically. We all know the things that he did, but how many of us know him? If your relationship with Jesus is just based on knowledge, you might as well worship Hitler. Because you've got just as much knowledge, or can have just as much knowledge about him as we do Jesus. There are more books written about Hitler than there are about Jesus. And somebody says, well, those aren't inspired. Does it make any difference if all we are is becoming knowledge-filled people? What God wants is spirit-filled people. He wants people not just to have a knowledge of Jesus. He wants people to know Jesus. He wants us to have a relationship with him. To know that he's really there, not to just guess or hope or think that, one of these days he might show up. It's got to be something that we believe with all of our faith. I have faith that Hitler walked this earth and that he did all the terrible things that he did. But I have more faith that Jesus is alive than I do that Hitler walked around on this earth. And I hope that you do too. That's what God asks us to do. I've come across people who would almost boast to me about how they used to be a Sunday school teacher. But now that you look at them, they're not even a part of a local congregation anywhere. They bounce around from church to church. They don't want to be a part of a family. They just want to be there. They just want to have the knowledge. Did I do that? I did, and I didn't even mean to. Sorry about that. The problem with bringing your relationship with Jesus down to an intellectual pursuit is the fact that an intellectual pursuit is without any form or part of morality. You can be a Christian, you can have a knowledge of Jesus, but until you apply him to your life, it's not really anything. It's not anything more than just knowledge. And we how do we get to know people? Anyway, well, we spend time with them. See, Lisa was convinced that I was a lot better guy the second time she met me and got to spend more time around me than she did the first time. She got to spend some time with people that knew me, that told her, he's not that bad. She met my sister. Yeah, thank you. That was good. It's exactly what she did. She said, are you Britt Farmer's sister? And she goes, yes. And Lisa said, oh, I feel sorry for you. She'd only known me a short time. My sister convinced her that I was a great guy. And that's a lie. I just lied. Please forgive me. I'm just kidding. My sister told her that I wasn't that bad, but she said, yeah, I know what you mean. He's arrogant, thinks he knows everything. He doesn't want anything except what's good for him. Guilty. But you know what? The more we spent time with each other and the more I got to know her, the more I fell in love. And I convinced her that I was worth loving. And when I asked her to marry me, she said yes. I couldn't believe it. It came because I got to know her. I got to spend time with her. I learned some things. Does that mean I'm supposed to quit? Quit opening that door back there, brother. I'm worried about you. But if Lisa and I hadn't got to spend time together, she would never have gotten to know me. It wouldn't have mattered what my sister said or what her friends told me that knew me. It wouldn't have mattered what anybody else said. It would have had to have been just her making a decision, and had to be her decision. Believe me, when she said yes, I couldn't believe it. I thought, well, maybe I need to rethink this. If she says yes, maybe I'm the one that don't know her very well. But I want you to notice what it says in verse 3 in 1 John chapter 2. We know that we have come to know him if we keep his commands. The idea of keeping here means that that we are actively complying with what he wants from us. It's more than just a knowledge of him. We've got to understand what he expects from us. And it's in a relationship that we expect things from one another. We know what we ought to do and what we ought not do in a relationship with our spouses. How can we not know what it is like to be with Jesus in that kind of relationship? We've got to understand that there's got to be that understanding that we've got to follow the rules. We know what we need to do to be right with God. We know what it means. What I know does not mean a whole lot unless it leads me down the path to be more in tune with Jesus. I can have all the knowledge, but unless I've got it in my heart, it's not going to matter a whole lot. Knowing him is more than what you say. It's about being obedient. Knowing God is more than what you say with your mouth. In fact, in 1 John chapter 2, verse 4, whoever says, I know him, but does not do what he commands is a liar, and the truth is not in that person. It's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? God tells us what to expect. I mean, how many times have you heard someone profess Jesus, and then you see no effort, no faith, no love in what they do? It happens all the time. For some, if they say it enough, however, that it becomes a reality to them. I can tell people I'm a major league pitcher all I want to. But if you've ever seen me pitch, you know that that's not true. Oh, I know how to pitch, or used to. I knew all the right things to do. I could throw a curve ball and a knuckle ball and a screw ball and a fastball. The only thing is everybody just hit them. I couldn't make it to the big leagues because I couldn't throw it past them. I could make all the pitches. I looked right. I did the right things. But whenever it came to performance, my performance was not good enough to make it to that level. So just looking at me and understanding that, you would know if you were a baseball person that I wasn't qualified to be a major league pitcher. Question, how are we doing in our world with our Christianity, in our relationship with Jesus? Do people look at us and say, that guy's a Christian? That guy's a Christian. Larry McWilliams walked into the church building where I was at one time, and I saw his face, and I didn't know anything about him. Just another guy, somebody said, well, he pitched for the Pirates. He did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. Yeah, okay. But when I saw him on TV, and I saw the results of what I had been told, I knew that the next time I saw him, I said, there is a major league pitcher. But more than that, I could say, there is a brother in Christ. Because, see, I didn't see the pitcher side of him before I saw the Christian side of him. And I'm more concerned about the follower of Jesus than I am the Major League Baseball pitcher. Let's think about it. How many times have we heard someone profess and then see no effort? We all experience bumps and potholes in the road. I'm not talking about those. There have been times whenever people could have looked at me and said, I don't see how in the world that guy could ever be a Christian. I've had people tell me about people in my congregation, as long as they're there, I'm not coming. Because of some pothole that they had fallen into, some trip up that they had had. They said, how can a person like that be a Christian? And yet, that's the way the world sees us a lot of times. We're going to have potholes in the road. We're going to have bumps in the road. We're going to fall down. The thing is we've got to get up and start again. The word says here indicates there's a person who continually says that they've come to know God. They say they know him, but you can't tell who it is that they know. They don't know what Jesus is about. In Titus 1, verses 15 through 16, to the pure all things are pure, But to those who are corrupted and do not believe, nothing is pure. In fact, both their minds and consciences are corrupted. They claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for doing anything good. Once again, we're at the commandment statement. I wonder, wherever we got the idea that we can serve Jesus and not worry about obedience. We're told in this very verse that if we say that we've come to know him and do not keep his commandments, we're a liar and the truth is not in us. The question is how are we doing? I mean, why do you think John used such strong language here? I'm going to tell you why. It's because this is a very serious matter. I mean, James speaks about how important it is to show your faith versus just talking about it. Knowing him is more. In James 2, in verses 14 and following, it says this, I write to you, fathers, because, I'm sorry, yes I am, right there. I write to you, fathers, because you have known him who is from the beginning. I write to you, young men, because you are strong, and the word of God lives in you, and you have overcome the evil one. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, the boasting of what he has and does, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but the man who does the will of God lives forever. Dear children, this is the last hour. And as you have heard the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come. This is how we know it's the last hour. They went out from us, but they did not really belong to us. For if they had belonged to us, they would have remained with us. But their going showed that none of them belonged to us. There's more to knowing Jesus than just saying you know him. It takes obedience. Knowing him is more than a mystical experience. It's about being obedient. In 1 John 2 and verse 6, whoever claims to live in him must live as Jesus did. John says if one abides in Jesus, they are to walk in that same manner. To abide here means more than to be in him. It includes remaining in him, a permanent and intimate association, not a temporary, superficial one, but one that lasts. There have always been expectations of God that man has to fulfill once we've accepted the terms of salvation and the subsequent blessings and privileges that come with it. See, a mystical experience or a special gift, whether real or perceived, does not mean that we know God. It doesn't mean that we abide in him. But it does mean that we need to make every effort in our lives to be with him, to know him. See, knowing him results in our love for him being perfected because of being obedient. In 1 John 2 and verse 5, but if anyone obeys his word, love for God is truly made complete in them. This is how we know him. The love that we experience toward Jesus is one that we continually grow. We continue to nourish, nurture, cultivate, build up, grow, to develop because we are continuing to be in him. The love we experience toward Jesus is there. I mean, if we don't want to obey the will of God, that's by choice. All of us are given that opportunity. We can say, I choose not to obey, but that's not what God wants us to do. We do not want to obey God. We do not love him, and our love is not mature. And that happens. But when we do not want to obey God, it's telling the whole world that we love ourselves more than we love who we claim we're supposed to be, a child of God. We love ourselves more than God at that time, because true knowledge of God doesn't end with ideas and promises. It ends with obedience so that the world can see they're really, truly what they claim to be. We need to be as evident a Christian as any sports figure that we see and claim to be real on TV. We ought to be that evident. We ought to be like we're on TV all the time. That whenever people look at us, they ought to be able to see Christ living in us. That doesn't mean we walk around piously and bowing our heads and folding our hands or getting on our knees to pray. We're not the publican. That's not what he's asking us to be. He's asking us to live as if we are truly Christians, living what we claim to be. So the question is this morning, do you know my Jesus? Do you know the Jesus that really died on that cross? Does the world see him living in you? Do they see you living in him? If we truly know him, people should be able to see that. I made that statement one time and a lady said, well, if the world doesn't see Jesus and living in me, then it's their fault. Really? Maybe the coach put you on the bench. Maybe the TV camera is not watching you. Every one of us ought to be recognizable for our Christianity, our love for God, our love for each other, and our love for his church. As visible and noticeable as the major league pitcher standing on the mound doing his job. Do you know my Jesus? For years, many of us have felt comfortable knowing Jesus on Sunday and forgetting him Monday through Saturday. Have no recollection. We don't even care what happens through the week. We get our ticket punched on Sunday and we feel comfortable about that, and that's what we want. As long as we're there, nobody will bother us. You're right. Nobody will. But nobody will know Jesus either. The question is how are we doing? Are we living our Christianity in a world today? Do we tell the world in our daily walk that we belong to Jesus? How can you know Jesus? How can you know if you know Jesus? It's simple. Two things to look at. First, we do what he says, and second, do we live how he wants us to live? I did not speak about the spiritual disciplines it takes. I mentioned it. I didn't talk about reading his word for nourishment. We didn't go into depth on that. I mentioned it. We didn't talk about prayer in great depth, but we mentioned it. But we did talk about being one with Jesus. And that encompasses all of that. We can do this. It's not difficult. It's just a choice. It's just a matter of saying, I really want that in my life. I want to be that person. I want to live that life. And God says, you live that life, and the blessings of eternity will be yours. I don't know about you, but that's better than anything I can get here on earth. I don't know about you, but that's what my goal is. It's not about what I get here on earth. Oh, and the blessings will come. Don't get me wrong. God will bless us, and he'll take care of our needs. But you know when it's amazing when we lose sight of heaven? It blows my mind. When we're more concerned about what's going on here than we are about the fact that we're going to be in heaven. First, do we do what he says? And second, do we live how he wants us to live? Those things must be an important part of your life. or you will never get to the point of knowing about the God we serve, nor understanding him. Without reading the Word and without prayer, we'll never develop the trust we need in order to obey him in the first place. Today, I give you the opportunity to make Jesus the Lord of your life. I hope that today is the day that you'll commit to having a more healthy, growing relationship with Jesus. That's what I hope. Today, that's the opportunity I hope that you'll take care of. And I pray that you'll think about who you are and whose you are. Do you know my Jesus? Do you really know him? I think you probably do. The question is, do you want to live for him? Do you want to be his? We're going to sing this song of encouragement. Listen to the words, because they're speaking to you this morning. And if you need to come, for whatever reason, as our shepherds pass, if you need to speak with one of them, if they can be of service, or if you need to meet with somebody in the back, if you need to come to the front, if we can help you in any way, whether it's to become a child of God or ask for prayer or whatever you need to do, if you want to get to know Jesus better, let us know. But today, make a decision that will be worth eternity. Do you know my Jesus? If you don't, make him known in your life today. While we stand and while we sing, won't you come?